I definitely want the people to know that he was on his motherfucking A game that night.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell people that 100% for a fact. Just because he didn't live up to y'all expectation, don't mean that he fought a bad fight, or he somewhat, or like people saying he trashed down or overrated or hype. He's a good fighter. I was in there thinking like a motherfucker, like, you know what I'm saying, like I have to. I just had I had the performance that I needed to have to perform like how I did, and you know, it don't take away nothing from him. That's why the fight was so good, because he's a good fighter. So I definitely want people to know that 100% for a fact. Like, and the rematch is gonna be fire.
Shalom, and welcome back to my channel. I just want to start off first by saying shout out to It Is What It Is podcast. They had Lamont Roach on there, and I used that clip. Also, shout out to Broadway Joel, who had Edwin De Los Santos on his show, and I will be talking a little bit about some of the conversation that they had in his interview. Go subscribe to those two channels if you have not. So the title of this is What Fight Fans Miss and Disregard. In that clip, I just want to say first, much respect to Lamont Roach, because he did a thing in that clip that I really wish a lot of other fighters would do. He gave props to Tank, Gervonta Davis. Now you can argue he did that in wanting to hype up the rematch, or he did it because he actually genuinely feels like Tank is still a viable opponent. I said this, I believe, on my recap of that fight, that just because some of us may feel Tank looked a certain way does not negate that Tank is still a good fighter. He is still a Class A fighter. You know, I know a lot of people have varying opinions about this, but in my personal opinion, yes, Tank is still very much so Tank. He's still a very good fighter. He's still a dangerous fighter. And I have said in different spaces that, you know, sometimes guys just have another guy's number. And we don't even know if that's the case here, because the rematch may look totally different than what we believe we saw. Again, a lot of people felt like Tank edged that. Minus, of course, the taking a knee. But a lot of people felt, such as myself, that Lamont clearly won that fight. You know, it is what it is. Again, I just respect the fact that Lamont gave homage. He paid respect to Gervonta, and I think a lot more fighters should do this. As people who support the sport, a lot of times, you know, our feelings get involved, our biases get involved, and we tend to belittle the opposition. You know, if we are going for one party, we belittle the opposition, and you know, it's all to be expected, you know, in sports, truly. But at the same time, when you have a fighter paying respect to their opponent, and they're telling their fans or their supporters that, hey, this is a viable guy, this is a good fighter, he's worthy. um, I think it lessens the opportunity for the people who maybe don't like that individual, or the people who are just, again, going for the guy who's saying, hey, this is a good guy I'm fighting. It lessens our opportunity to hate so much down the opposition, to belittle, to call them cans, to call them bums, trash. Because the reality is, who wants their favorite fighter fighting a bum? Who wants their favorite fighter fighting trash? Or someone who's not even worthy of their favorite fighter, or the individual that they're supporting? You know, we miss that. We disregard that a lot of times. A lot of times in these conversations, in these spaces, things get ugly. Um, we've seen that very recently. And when fights drag out to be made, it gets really ugly and toxic. And we all know more than likely what I'm talking about. But it's just and maybe that's just my own personal opinion. I don't care for the mess. I would like to think that the person that I'm supporting in a boxing match is fighting the best fighter they can fight. And if not the best fighter they can fight, at least a good dang opponent. You know what I mean? A good viable opponent who can fight. So with that said, again, kudos and much respect to Lamont Roach. Now, I don't have the clip of this next piece that I'm going to speak about, but I will provide a link. It is not in English, and it is Broadway Joel again, and he interviewed Edwin de los Santos. And in that interview, Edwin talks about how Shakur Stevenson said that Edwin was the best opponent that he faced. And it's just the fact that when we saw that fight, and I attended that fight personally, we don't think of the fight against Shakur and De Los Santos as that. A lot of us called it boring. We looked at the punch stats and we're like, man, look, lowest output. There's just so many strikes that were against that fight. And for Shakur to acknowledge Edwin as the best fighter he's fought, and for Edwin to understand that and reciprocate in saying, really it was a mental chess match, so to speak, and that they had an understanding that if I make a mistake, he's gonna be able to capitalize on the mistake that I make. So again, we have another fighter who's acknowledging another individual, irregardless of how we feel about that particular match. That's the best competition he said that he's had. And a lot of us actually just saw it as a bad matchup style wise. They feel differently about each other. But another little gem that Edwin dropped in this interview is that Shakur Stevenson offered to be his manager. I found that very interesting. So they have had conversations. They have been speaking with each other. They have a friendly relationship through all that happened. And Shakur wants to manage him. I just find that very interesting. Um, and he seems to be excited. He did not say whether or not he accepted, but he seems to be receptive of it. Um, he also indicated that received um, he was being sued the morning of their fight. 10 a.m. the morning of his fight with Shakur, he was served with papers. And from the little bit of investigation that I did and what I could gather, it may have been Samson Lukowitz, and that is his promoter. So his promoter possibly may have sued him, and I'm gathering, it was not said, but I'm gathering it was possibly because it was a top rank fight. And if you know, Edwin is on PBC. So um I'm not sure. Maybe this will come out in the wash. Maybe it won't, because he really did not speak to it. He really didn't seem to want to speak to it so much. And again, it was just a little bit of digging on my part, and I've kind of surmised that. So this is not concrete um, evidence, one, of who is suing him or why. Just what I've gathered, just a little bit of interesting information. But shout out and kudos to Lamont Roach and to Shakur Stevenson for putting it out there that as much as as hard as we are on these fighters, they have a mutual respect amongst each other, obviously. And to be honest, I've been glad to see that Shakur has been calling out a lot of people. Now, whether he fights them or not, we know that's a totally different story. But there seems to be a lot of movement in boxing. You can say it's because of Turkey, and it likely is. But it's just good to see. It's good to see guys calling each other out. It's good to see guys seemingly willing to be able to fight each other. That'll be it for me, though. I am in the middle of watching the Cambosas versus, was it Wiley card. I just watched the ladies, Nika and Johnson and Hughes. Nika did win. Hughes corner threw in the towel. I believe it was in the 7th round that happened. It was a good match, and I'm hearing little talks about Shanika maybe fighting Metcalf next. So we'll see what pans out. Thank you for tuning in. You guys be blessed, and shalom. If you know what you're looking at, then you know boxing is on fire.